irresponsible to talk about a bill that would facilitate holding a pandemic election. I think we've said it enough. People that we represent expect more from us, and they have other concerns right now. The Honourable Member for Avignon, Matisse Matan Matapédia will have 3.5 minutes for questions and comments following when the debate resumes on.
We are going to go to statements by members, déclaration de député, and the Honourable Member first will be the Honourable Member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the co-chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Falun Gong, also called Falun Dafa, it's my great pleasure to join the millions of people around the world in over 100 countries who are celebrating Falun Dafa Day. I extend my warmest greetings to the Falun Gong community and all of their supporters on the 29th anniversary of Falun Dafa's introduction to the rest of the world. The universal values that we all share of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, which are at the heart of Falun Dafa, are also wonder ideals for building an outstanding country like Canada. I appreciate you for continuing to bring these values to life in Canada and for joining all of us in creating a better world and a better country. This celebration is an opportunity to recognize the benefits of this moral teaching that has made excellent contributions toward a more healthy, peaceful, tolerant, and compassionate society. I commend you for your courage, perseverance, and peaceful resolve in upholding faith, freedom, and justice. It is a true reflection of the principles of Falun Dafa, which are admirable and speaks loudly to the merits of your teachings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In India, the second wave of COVID-19 has spread like a wildfire, overwhelming the healthcare system and exhausting key medical supplies. The Indian government has sent over 60 million vaccines to over 75 different countries. When Canada needed vaccine and pharmaceuticals, India answered the call. Now that India faces shortage of life-saving supplies, we need to answer their call. There is deadly oxygen shortage in India. Canadian companies like ON2 Solutions are producing world-class oxygen plants. We need to get more plants to India as quickly as possible. For the people who want to help, I urge you to donate directly to Canadian Red Cross. I also urge the government to make these funds dollar for dollar in show of solidarity with India. Lastly, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. I call on the government to join the push to drop patent protection for life-saving COVID-19 vaccines to increase production. Lack of action will cost lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Mi'kmaq Ganamanue, a leader and a trailblazer for Indigenous-led education initiatives across the country. MK oversees the education of young Mi'kmaq in 12 of the 13 First Nations communities across Nova Scotia, bringing together chiefs, parents, educators, and an amazing staff. This Mi'kmaq-led education system is a model for institutions created by and for Indigenous people, rooted in community, language, and culture. In 2020, the high school graduation rate for Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia was an impressive 94%, and more than 600 students were enrolled in post-secondary education. This year, I'm proud to share that they are one of 6 recipients of the Governor General's Innovation Awards. It is a profound success story, and they should be very proud. To all the educators and staff who worked at MK over the years, a heartfelt congratulations and job well done.
Before proceeding, I just want to remind all the members that to speak in the House, whether it's virtually or in person, men require a tie and jacket. I just wanted to put that out there so that we remind everyone that there are a certain protocol. L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, it's with great sorrow that I learned of the death of Paul Viau, Mayor of the Township of Hemmingford, on May 11th. I've always had a deep respect and affection for Paul. He was a dedicated mayor and a committed reeve. He was particularly active in the area of social development. He was a visionary, colorful, outspoken man with whom it was easy to work. I'm sad to hear of his sudden departure. I remember his sense of commitment and the sincere passion that he had for life. He was a man of big projects, a man of action. To his family and friends, in your time of great loss, I hope that kindness and affection will bring you solace. I hope that these words will bring you a moment of peace, and I offer you, on behalf of the Bloc Québécois, my sincere condolences. Rest in peace, Paul.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Outremont. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, Muslims in my community, and in the rest of Canada, are celebrating Eid al-Fitr. This holiday marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, the end of a month of fasting and spirituality, a month of reflection, gratitude, compassion, and forgiveness. For the second year in a row, the celebration of Eid al-Fitr is different because of the pandemic. Please know how much I miss being with you and how much I miss the gatherings of our North African community.
I know that this Ramadan has been difficult, and I would have loved nothing more than to gather around again and break bread with my Muslim brothers and sisters in celebration of Eid and in commitment to peace and harmony between communities. In these turbulent times, it is more important than ever. Know that we are together. We are together in spirit. Eid Mubarak Saeed.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, a massive fire swept through the Citadel Mews West Continuing Care Facility in St. Albert, displacing more than 100 seniors. Despite the massive scale of the fire, there was no loss of life. And that is a result of dedicated caregivers, firefighters, and other first responders, as well as several Good Samaritans who acted quickly and fearlessly to evacuate residents. More than 100 firefighters throughout the region battled the fire, stopping it from spreading and saving part of the facility. In the wake of the fire, there has been an outpouring of generosity and support from our community to the residents. And while the loss to the residents cannot be understated, they can take at least some comfort in knowing that they live in a community that truly does care and will do everything to help them get through this trying time.
The Honourable Member for Mount Royal.
Monsieur le Président, au cours...
Mr. Speaker, in the last Parliament, the Justice Committee tabled a report on improving support for jurors in Canada. All parties came together to recognize that there was much work to be done in order to improve the experience of jurors.
We found that jurors lacked information on their role and responsibilities. Often were paid amounts that had not been adjusted since the 1970s and were not compensated for their costs. Most importantly, we recognized jurors were often not provided mental health services that they desperately needed. We made important recommendations, which included increasing awareness of the role of jurors. Since then, individuals like Mark Ferrand, Patrick Bailey, and Tina Denzer have stepped up to create the Canadian Juries Commission to advocate for jurors. Today, I call upon Parliament to recognize the second week in May as Jury Appreciation Week in Canada. This week is recognized in many U.S. states and is a great way to recognize the important role that jurors have to ensure the effective administration of justice in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Yesterday was National Nursing Day. As a doctor who's worked 35 years in a lot of hospitals in a lot of different countries, I've worked with thousands of nurses over the years. I, like every doctor, and I hope this is acceptable to say in Parliament, have had my butt saved on many occasions by nurses who've been far smarter than I have. And any doctor who denies something similar happening to them is either a much better doctor than I or someone who's hopelessly arrogant. Now, certainly the pandemic has taken its toll on nurses. It is estimated over 17,000 health workers globally have died as a result of COVID, many of them nurses. In addition, many nurses have not only had to work harder, they've done so in fear for their own lives or fear that they might get sick and transmit the disease to their own families. I would like to say, and I hope all other doctors and all other MPs would join me in saying thank you to our nurses. Thank you.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, on May 20th, Ukrainian Canadians across our nation will celebrate Vyshyvanka Day. It is with great honor to congratulate all Ukrainian Canadians on this special occasion. In this chamber, we truly understand the importance of Ukrainian embroidery as a symbol of heritage, dignity, and unity. This is why we will be celebrating this day virtually, with thousands of Ukrainian Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Vyshyvanka Day is also a reminder of the challenges that Ukraine faced in the past and continues to overcome as an independent state. This holiday is another chance for us to declare our support for the people of Ukraine in their fight for sovereignty. We will never recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea and the occupation of Donbas. On behalf of Canada's conservatives, happy Vyshyvanka Day.
Honorable député.
The Honourable Member from Madawaska-Restigouche. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To all of the students graduating from high school, college, or university in 2021.
21 graduates of high schools, colleges, or university. Aujourd'hui,
today, I want to recognize all of your academic achievements and to congratulate you. You should be proud of everything that you've accomplished.
You have overcome the challenges and obstacles of life. With your determination, your dedication, and your resilience, you still managed to finish this chapter of your life. It's now the time to honor your success with your family and friends. Vous avez travaillé.
You worked so hard to get to this point. This diploma is just the beginning of your great adventure. The next page of your great book will be about your passion, imagination, and creativity.
Believe in yourself, in your dreams, and in your future. For those who continue their study, we wish you a beautiful continuity. And for the ones starting their career, we are wishing you great success. Once again, congratulations on your graduations. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, this past year has been extremely challenging. I would like to highlight the incredible efforts made in my riding of Souris Moose Mountain to keep our local industries afloat. As I have said before, agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and we owe a lot to our farmers for the work they do to feed Canada and the world. As they are in the midst of seeding and hoping for rain, I would like to thank and recognize them for their tireless efforts year in and year out. I must also mention the hard workers in the oil and gas industry, many of whom have been struggling due to this government's utter lack of support. They want a hand up, not a handout. And with issues like the cancellation of Line 5, they deserve a conservative government that will secure their future. This is also the case for small businesses who are so essential in my riding, especially in smaller communities. The pandemic has been particularly hard on them, and I recognize the efforts of all my constituents to shop at home and spend money locally. Thank you all for your perseverance, hard work, and incredible spirit throughout these unprecedented challenges. I couldn't be prouder to represent you.
We had some interference with that, the honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain. I want to remind all the members, if you're not on, please check to see that your mic is muted. I know inadvertently you may ruin somebody else's speech, and we don't want to do that in the chamber. That being said, I'll let the honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain do his over again if he would like.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, this past year has been extremely challenging, and I would like to highlight the incredible efforts made in my riding of Souris Moose Mountain to keep our local industries afloat. As I have said before, agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and we owe a lot to our farmers for the work that they do to feed Canada and the world. As they are in the midst of seeding and hoping for rain, I would like to thank and recognize them for their tireless efforts year in and year out. I must also mention the hard workers in the oil and gas industry, many of whom are still struggling due to this government's utter lack of support. They want a hand up, not a handout. And with issues like the cancellation of Line 5, they deserve a conservative government that will secure their future. This is also the case for small businesses who are so essential in my riding, especially in smaller communities. The pandemic has been particularly hard on them, and I recognize the efforts of all my constituents to shop at home and spend money locally. Thank you all for your perseverance, hard work, and incredible spirit throughout these unprecedented challenges. I couldn't be prouder to represent you.
The honourable member for Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the single sports betting bill C-218 is currently before the Senate. I value the vital role our senators play in reviewing bills passed by the House and rise today on behalf of tourism sectors and its workers to appeal to senators to pass this legislation quickly. This bill received all party support in this House, quite an achievement. The tourism industry has been hit hard by the COVID pandemic. To recover, it will need Parliament's full support. C-218 will secure well-paying jobs and give the tourism industry a much-needed boost. I look forward to this swift passage in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to thank my Conservative colleague, the MP for Saskatoon-Greenwood, for introducing this legislation. Tourism is a significant driver in my riding's local economy. Passage of this bill, Mr. Speaker, will be welcome news back home. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say what an honour it is to stand in this House on behalf of the people of Essex.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
Mr. Speaker, the fight against COVID-19 must include real investments in northern housing. In Nunavut, we've had COVID cases in 3 isolated communities, Iqaluit, Rankin Inlet, and Kingay in just the past month. While families in Ottawa and Toronto are told to stay home, wash their hands, and stay physically distanced, Nunavut are packed inside overcrowded and moldy homes that are falling apart. Nunavut has the highest rate of overcrowded housing in Canada, and we have 6 times the national average of housing in need of major repairs. $25 million in the budget is laughable, to say the least. How do you stay in a home when your house is full of mold? You live with 14 other people in a 4-bedroom, and your house is full of broken pipes. Addressing the chronic housing crisis in Nunavut is a matter of public health, Indigenous rights, and basic human dignity. We live in one of the richest countries in the world, Mr. Speaker. We can do better. We must do better.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, as the Bloc Québécois critic for family, children, and social development, I'm pleased to wish all Quebecers a happy Family Week today. The family is our first home. It's where we're first loved, where we learn our mother tongue and our culture, where we adopt values that will help us create bonds of caring and solidarity with other people outside of our family, that will help us overcome challenges and to participate meaningfully in society. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate 2 members of my team, Jessie and Anthony, and their respective spouses, Frédéric and Denora. Last month for Jessie, and actually just yesterday for Anthony, they both saw their families get a little bit bigger with the births of Ethan and Louis. I want you to know that as a member of Parliament, I'm there for your families, just as the Bloc Québécois will always be there for all Quebec families. We'll be here to listen, to support. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, for over a year, Canadians have done their best to comply with public health measures to contain the spread of COVID, but the pandemic has left millions of Canadians worried about their economic security. Canadians need a government that isn't ashamed of primary industries like energy, fishing, forestry, and farming. They need a government committed to manufacturing, tourism, and the innovations of our high-tech entrepreneurs. Canada's Conservatives believe in securing the future for Canadians by making sure none are left behind by COVID. We believe in revitalizing Main Street with incentives to small business investment, not by handing out cash to connected insiders. Canadians need a government that will allow them to find the dignity and security of stable, well-paying jobs with rising wages. Canadians need a government committed to all regions and every sector of the Canadian economy. Canadians need a Conservative government, one that will secure the future for Canadian workers.
The Honourable Member for Pierre-Fond-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, I want to wish the Muslims of Canada who celebrate it in my riding and elsewhere, Eid Mubarak.
After Ramadan, a month of fasting, patience, and self-reflection. Normally, Eid is festive, filled with family visits, friends, and food. For a second year, this Eid is unique. While many are taking the day off, socializing will have to keep public health guidelines in mind. I know this Eid, many have a heavy heart. The strife in Jerusalem, at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and in other parts of the world is heartbreaking. Durable and dignified peace is possible, but the path to it is never easy. It requires continuous and ongoing work. As we pass through these challenging times, let's pray the next Eid is filled with family, friends, and loved ones. Eid Mubarak.
Oral questions, question orale. The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, right now on this spring day in May, Canadians are still locked up, watching our American neighbours sit on patios with friends, play in parks with their kids, and cheer on sports teams in packed stadiums. Here in Canada, basketball hoops and swings are covered in plastic to keep the kids away, restaurants and patios still closed, and families can't see each other. Why? Because this government has failed to get vaccines. Isn't it true that we are far, far behind most other countries, and Canadians are paying a heavy price for Liberal failures?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is working closely with provinces and territories to get Canada vaccinated as quickly as possible. To date, we have sent over 20.2 million vaccines to provinces and territories, with millions more arriving in the weeks to come. And let me remind the member opposite that the budget bill includes $1 billion to support provinces and territories in their vaccination efforts.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Canadians are suffering while the rest of the world moves ahead, and it's because of the Liberals' third wave. Mr. Speaker, we all know the Liberal thought police are alive and well, and through C10, the Prime Minister is expanding his attempt at controlling Canadians by controlling what they can see or can't see online. And if you question C10, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist. All the while, the Heritage Minister has incoherent and inconsistent answers on how their own bill will apply. Do these Liberals have such a low opinion of Canadians that they think they must control their online activities?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has the highest opinion of Canadians, and let me say, I believe every single member of this House does too. All of us are privileged to serve our Canadian constituents. Now, as a former journalist and editor, let me assure Canadians that our government understands how essential freedom of expression is to democracy. We will never limit freedom of expression. This bill does not do that.
Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Well, yesterday, the Minister of Heritage admitted the goal of C10 is to end net neutrality, thereby controlling online freedoms. This isn't about web giants or artists. It's about what Canadians can and can't post and can and cannot see online. Can the Heritage Minister just admit that what these Liberals are trying to do actually has nothing to do with promoting Canadian content and everything to do with stifling free speech and expression?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say, speaking very personally, as a former journalist and editor, I absolutely understand how important freedom of expression is. It is a foundation and pillar of our democracy. And I want to assure all members of this House and all Canadians that our government will never limit freedom of expression. That is not what this bill does, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we Conservatives are in favour of culture and against censorship. The problem with C10, Mr. Speaker, is that it was literally put together by the Heritage Minister haphazardly, and freedom of expression is no longer protected. It's even threatened. We're not the only ones saying that, Mr. Speaker. Academics, former CRTC members, and other observers are all saying this bill goes too far. The minister himself says that those who have a popular YouTube account will come under federal jurisdiction. Who's going to draw the line between what's good and what's bad? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, our government is completely against censorship, and I think all members in the House feel the same way. We're all against censorship. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect us to be there to support our artists and creators, and that's why our government has been very happy to see a unanimous resolution from the Quebec National Assembly in support of Bill C-10. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the Deputy Prime Minister feels that way. because every time the Heritage Minister speaks, he sticks his foot in his mouth. On the weekend, within 24 hours, he had to clarify his remarks twice, apology, and now his parliamentary secretary is the one doing the press conferences. The minister is the architect of this problem with C10. And the question is simple. Why did the minister remove the clause that protected freedom of expression? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as a former journalist and editor, I'd like to assure you that I'm keenly aware that Canadians have the right to freedom of expression. Our government would never limit freedom of expression. That is not what this bill does. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an important day for Quebec. It's an important day for French. The government of Quebec has just tabled Bill 96, the Official Languages and Common Language of Quebec Act, i.e. French. This is the most ambitious legislation since Bill 101. The Bloc Québécois salutes the determination to halt the decline of our common language and to promote its development. Does the Prime Minister agree and commend the Government of Quebec on this initiative to defend our only official language, our only common language, French? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as we've always said, the protection and promotion of French is a priority for our government. The federal government has recognized for the first time that the situation of French in Quebec is unique and that the government has a responsibility to protect and promote French. We are aware of the legislation tabled in Quebec City, and we will study it closely. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I was expecting more enthusiasm. The Bloc Québécois has solved a number of problems that Ottawa couldn't or wouldn't. Quebec has done what all federal governments have done since the failure of Meech Lake. They've written into the Constitution that Quebecers are a nation, a French-speaking nation, what's more. This is a strong assertion of our national will. I would invite the Prime Minister to make an official commitment, an unequivocal and categorical commitment. Will he undertake not to challenge, directly or indirectly, Bill 96 on the official and common language of French, which is French? Will he undertake not to challenge that legislation in court? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. I had some problems with my mute. Mr. Speaker, the protection and promotion of French is a priority to our government. Our government has, for the first time, recognized that the situation of French in Canada is unique and that the federal government has a responsibility to protect and promote French. That is a responsibility that we take very seriously, and it will be a pleasure for us to work with all members to do just that. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
There's currently a ban on the donation of blood from gay men, a blood ban which makes absolutely no sense and has no basis in science. And the Liberals know this. They've campaigned to remove the blood ban in 2015 and in 2019, yet continue to break that promise. And now I have a question directly for the Prime Minister. Why does the Prime Minister continue to campaign to remove the blood ban, yet right now is defending the blood ban in court?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank the member opposite for this very important question. Speaking as a member of Parliament, it is something that I have spoken to many of my constituents about and that I know gravely concerns many Canadians. Our government absolutely shares those concerns. At the same time, we respect the independence of Canadian institutions, especially when it comes to medical and scientific issues.
Member for Burnaby South.
Ça n'a pas aucun sens.
That makes no sense. During the election campaign, they said they were opposed to this ban, which is based on no science whatsoever, and it is injurious and offensive to gay men. That's clear, and the Liberals know it. And they even pledged to fight against this ban. Why has the Prime Minister campaigned to get rid of this ban, but currently hasn't delivered the goods? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to point out that our government agrees that this is a discriminatory practice that upsets many Canadians, offends them. Our government is working very hard now to get rid of this practice, but we have to work cooperatively with our medical and scientific experts.
Number 4, Abbotsford.
Well, the Prime Minister promised a growth budget. Instead, all he gave us was bigger government, bigger debt, bigger deficits. More and more experts are piling on. Kevin Lynch, the former Deputy Finance Minister, said that the budget missed an urgent opportunity to rebuild our longer-term growth post-pandemic. He said that this intergenerational transfer of debt and risk was unprecedented. By any measure, the biggest spending budget in our history was a bust. Why did the Prime Minister miss this opportunity to secure our economic future?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am so glad to get this question because it gives me an opportunity to talk about how well the Canadian economy is doing. And let me talk about some verdicts that really matter. Standard & Poor, the international ratings agency, 1 week after the budget, reaffirmed our AAA rating and said the outlook for Canada is stable. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't get better than that, and that should assure all Canadians.
Member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, last month, Canada lost 200,000 jobs. The recent budget wasn't about economic growth. It was about an avalanche of spending to re-elect the Prime Minister. Now we read troubling reports about officials who were asked to come up with excuses for $1 million of spending after that spending had already been announced. Go figure. Turns out this budget wasn't about growth. It was about a ready, fire, aim approach to policymaking that isn't about serving Canadians. It's about serving this Prime Minister. And who's left holding the bag? Canadians, of course. The Prime Minister has failed us. Why?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives may have their own partisan reasons for talking down the Canadian economy, but I am so proud of how resilient and innovative Canadians are. And Mr. Speaker, that resilience is showing in the numbers. In the fourth quarter, Mr. Speaker, our economy grew by 10%. In the first quarter of this year, Mr. Speaker, it grew by 6.5%. And Mr. Speaker, in the first quarter, the U.S. grew up by only 6.3%. And Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Canada has upgraded its forecast for this year to 6.5% growth.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of small businesses have had to close their doors because they couldn't get help during the pandemic. But this Prime Minister sent $1 billion in wage subsidies to large companies that didn't need it and paid millions in dividends to their executives. Extendicare, Canada's largest privately owned seniors residence operator, applied for and got $21 million in wage subsidies, claiming that demand for care was declining during the pandemic. Why did the Prime Minister choose the Liberal elite over working Canadians? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Our government always chooses to support Canadians and Quebecers. That's precisely what we did. The wage subsidy supported 5.3 million workers in Canada, and in Quebec alone, the wage subsidy supported 1.29 million workers. It's very important to support Canadians today, Mr. Speaker, and that's precisely what our government is going to do. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. The finance minister should know that the reality is that the rich got richer during the pandemic at the expense of struggling Canadians. That's the reality. Marcel Bourassa, CEO of Savaria, received $3.4 million in dividends, while his company received $4.5 million in wage subsidies. Alain Bédard, CEO of TFI International, paid $2.3 million in dividends to his execs, while his company received $25 million in public funds. Why did the president of the Treasury Board authorize these payments to the Prime Minister's rich cronies? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that our government was there for Canadians from the very start of the pandemic, and we will remain there for them. 873,000 jobs received the wage subsidy from companies received the wage subsidy. Our government has supported more than 10 million Canadian workers. We know that we need to support Canadians, and that's precisely what we're doing.
For Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are now learning that at least 32 companies that filed for bankruptcy before the pandemic was declared took millions from the wage subsidy, but no jobs were protected despite the taxpayer investment. It's becoming more and more clear that the Liberal government failed to provide the necessary oversight on this program worth over $100 billion. Meanwhile, a woman entrepreneur in my riding opened a gym in early 2020 and doesn't qualify for any federal program as a result. And I wrote to the government 2 months ago about this and have yet to receive a response. So why is the Liberal government prioritizing bankrupt companies over new small business owners who've received nothing?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that question, I'm afraid, betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of how bankruptcy protection works in Canada and what it is intended to do. Bankruptcy protection is intended to enable companies to restructure and to emerge as viable businesses. It is entirely appropriate for companies during that process to be encouraged to maintain employment. That is exactly what the wage subsidy does and continues to do. It has supported the jobs of 5.3 million Canadians. We're proud of that, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering if the Deputy Prime Minister is proud that her government funded Pender Fund Capital Management, which has $1.5 billion in assets, and one of its most prominent funds recorded ever was 40% of returns last year, or JM Fund Management, which had a pretty good return in 2020, not yet seen since 2016, and ranked one of the third best performing hedge funds in 2020. So I'm just wondering if she finds it ethical, or personally I find it a bit disrespectful, her response, particularly in light of all the small businesses that opened up right before the pandemic and received not a penny from this Liberal government. So again, I'm just wondering if the minister believes, like her predecessor, that it's ethical to give billions to wealthy hedge funds and bankrupt companies and nothing to newly opened small businesses.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I think is ethical is doing whatever it takes to support Canadians and Canadian businesses get through this once-in-a-generation pandemic. And that is why I am so pleased that 873,000 small businesses across the country have been able to receive the CEBA loan. In the member's own province of Manitoba, 22,603 small businesses have received the CEBA loan. The wage subsidy in Manitoba alone has supported 175,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, Quebec has repeated its intention today to subject federally regulated businesses to Bill 101. This meets the unanimous desire of the National Assembly of Quebec and a call from all living premiers. Ottawa has always opposed this, but this fall, the government finally recognized that it needed to protect and promote French in Quebec. They also recognized the unique situation of French in North America in an ocean of Anglophones. Will the government, therefore, collaborate with Quebec in order to apply Bill 101 to federally regulated businesses? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from Montarville for his excellent question because, yes, indeed, our government's recognition of the need for the protection and promotion of French is historic, and we want to recognize the right to work and be served in French. And this should apply in federally regulated industries in Quebec and in other parts of Canada where numbers warrant. So we are following the situation closely with the new legislation in Quebec, and we will study that bill and, of course, protect language rights, inherent language rights of Quebecers, both in Quebec and elsewhere in the country, while protecting language minorities. The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, based on that recognition of the decline of French in Quebec and the need to promote and protect our language, it should be good news for the federal government to see Quebec tabling the most ambitious language reforms in 40 years. The government should undertake to be a partner with Quebec in applying Bill 96. Obviously, the first way of helping is not undermining this legislation. Will the government promise today that they will not challenge Bill 96, whether directly or financially? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, the government recognizes that Quebecers constitute a nation within Canada, and the official languages of Quebec, language of Quebec is French. And I tabled a reform document earlier this session. Now, it goes without saying that we need to play our role, to do our part as a government to protect French in Quebec and all across the country. Because, as my colleague said, it goes without saying that there has been a decline of French in Canada. So we need to act, and we will. The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quebec has created a French language commissioner, not an official languages commissioner, because French has to be the common language in Quebec. Finally, Quebec will apply Bill 101 to federally regulated businesses. Finally, Quebec is asserting its place as a French-speaking nation before Canada. Will the federal government recognize that Quebec has to be the sole master of its house when it comes to language policy, and will they act as an ally rather than an adversary? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, I would remind my colleague that since the very beginning, since we tabled our reform document and before the throne speech even, we recognized the unique situation of French in Quebec and in Canada. We will do more. The federal government believes that true equality between our two official languages is necessary, so we will be doing more to support Francophones' language rights in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, and we will protect the rights of all language minorities, and I will have the opportunity to work with my Quebec counterparts in the months to come. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, it's becoming clear that scientists at the government's virus lab in Winnipeg worked closely with China. One of these scientists, Dr. Chu, not only visited China 5 times in 2 years for this work, but also collaborated with scientists at China's Military Institute and trained scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology to a level 4 standard, enabling them to handle the world's most deadly viruses. With all the known concerns about China's communist leadership, why was this government helping China build capacity to handle the world's most deadly viruses?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member opposite knows, first of all, that these particular researchers are no longer with the Public Health Agency of Canada, that I cannot comment due to privacy obligations, and that the National Microbiology Lab plays a critical role in research around the world and here in Canada.
Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, in a democracy, citizens deserve answers. To work at this government's Level 4 lab in Winnipeg requires a secret clearance, a clearance normally only given to Canadian citizens. CBC has reported that on July 5, 2019, Drs. Chu and Cheng, along with Chinese students, were escorted from the lab by the RCMP. How on earth did Chinese nationals get secret clearance to work at the government's Level 4 lab in Winnipeg, Manitoba?
Full Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first let me talk about the important role the National Microbiology Lab plays and continues to play, especially in the context of a global pandemic, and thank the professionals there that are working day and night to help Canadians with the laboratory and research needs that we have. I will say that I can't comment on this matter due to privacy obligations. These people are no longer with the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, we live in a democracy where transparent and open government is incredibly important, something that this government is not upholding. We know that secret clearance requires senior level approval. We know that CSIS raised national security concerns about Dr. Chu, Dr. Cheng, and the Chinese students at the government's lab in Winnipeg, as the Globe and Mail has reported. Mr. Speaker, with all that we know about China's communist leadership, how were these individuals given secret clearance at the government's Level 4 lab where the world's most dangerous viruses are handled?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will just repeat, the National Microbiology Lab is a Canadian treasure and has been providing incredible research and laboratory support to Canadians and Canadian organizations around the country during the pandemic. And I will also remind the member opposite that these individuals are no longer with the Public Health Agency of Canada and that I cannot comment due to privacy obligations.
Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, the Ethics Commissioner's report into the WE scandal is a doozy. This is way beyond whether or not Bill Morneau should have recused himself. What we learned is that the office of the finance minister of a G7 country used their enormous influence to open doors to further the private interests of the Kielburgers. I mean, Liberals were intervening right down to the municipal level to help their friend Craig. And then the Liberals put the WE brothers in the driver's seat of a $900 million deal with no competition. That's what got them into trouble. When will this government end this blatant insider access for their cronies and their pals?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner has investigated the matter, and the report released today clears the Prime Minister of all allegations. Let me quote directly from the report on page 3. Quote, the Prime Minister did not contravene subsection 6.1, section 7, or section 21 of the Act. The Commissioner is conclusive on page 40. Quote, I cannot conclude that a contravention has occurred.
The
Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, in the Liberal ranks, there's really a culture of conflict of interest. We saw that today. This is the 5th time that the Commissioner has announced that there's a conflict of interests among the Liberals. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 5 times. Even though the Prime Minister was not personally blamed, this affects the whole government because it was Cabinet that took that decision. Will the Prime Minister commit today to ending this culture of nepotism and prioritizing the needs of Canadians and not his Bay Street friends? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the report published today by the Commissioner exonerates the Prime Minister of all the allegations. And on page 3 of the report, it says that the Prime Minister did not contravene sections 3.1, 7, or 21 of the legislation. And the Commissioner additionally said that no evidence exists to show that the Prime Minister's decisions were taken in an irregular fashion in this matter. And the report concludes there was no violation of the rules.
Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, many Canadians, including myself, were pleased to see investments made through Budget 21 to restore the Law Reform Commission of Canada. In a world that has changed so much since 2006, when the Commission saw a cut in funding by the previous Conservative government, our justice system has faced new and more complex challenges. Now more than ever, we must ensure that Canadians have access to a justice system that is fair, relevant, and accessible. Can the Minister tell us more about this very important investment? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member from Etobicoke Lakeshore for his question. Through Budget 2021, we will invest $18 million over 5 years and $4 million ongoing to revive the Law Commission so that it is able to continue its important work guiding the federal government on the legal challenges of today and tomorrow with evidence-based ideas and research. The Commission will also ensure, Mr. Speaker, that our justice system is responsive to challenges such as systemic racism in the justice system, and will also help in establishing a new relationship with Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, today I am paying homage to one of my mentors, late Law Commission President Rod MacDonald, both in answering this question and in wearing this bow tie.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The federal government approved an unprecedented 4-month delay between doses of vaccine due to supply, meaning few Canadians are fully vaccinated against COVID. The federal government has not issued any clear advice for half-vaccinated Canadians about their level of protection, their risk of transmitting COVID, and what restrictions do or do not apply to them. Given the Prime Minister's announcement of a half-vaccinated summer, what official public health advice does the federal government have for half-vaccinated Canadians regarding what they can or cannot do?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not really sure where to start with that mixed bag of half-truths and falsehoods, but I'll start with this, Mr. Speaker. Here's what we do know. Vaccines save lives and they stop the spread of COVID. They are a critical tool in getting our lives back to normal. I want to thank all of the immunizers across the country who are working so hard to get vaccines in Canadians' arms. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we're doing a phenomenal job. We see that we are one of the fastest immunizers in the G7. We see Canadians stepping up in unprecedented ways to take vaccination when it's offered to them. And I would encourage Canadians to continue to get vaccinated. It will save their own life. It will help stop the spread in their community, and we will have a much better summer and fall.
Before continuing, I just want to remind all the members in the chamber and joining us virtually to be judicious on the language that they use. Sometimes some language may be inflammatory and cause problems. It's not necessarily a bold word that we think is going to be it, but sometimes the intention's behind it. So I just ask all members, I know this is week 5 of a long stretch, and just be mindful of our fellow members in the chamber. The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Thank you, Chair, for that advice to the Health Minister. Even though only 3% of Canadians are fully vaccinated, by now, Canadians should have advice from the federal government on what they can look forward to once fully vaccinated. And this also applies to half-vaccinated Canadians, given the proclamation of a half-vaccinated summer. Countries around the world are doing this. This type of hope will incent people to get the vaccines. So, what advice does the federal government have for half-vaccinated Canadians or fully vaccinated Canadians regarding what they can or cannot do?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me repeat, vaccines save lives and they stop the spread of disease. And I think Canadians know that we need to get to the finish line together. Canadians have made extraordinary sacrifices for each other, and now they're stepping up to the plate, getting vaccinated when it's their turn. That's how we see a light at the end of this tunnel, Mr. Speaker. I am so proud of all the immunizers around the country who are working so hard to get immunization to Canadians no matter where they live. We're going to reach that finish line, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to get there together.
L'honorable député de Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we have learned that Quebec and Ontario have suspended the administration of the first dose of AstraZeneca, and that 4 other provinces are considering the same thing. Canadians who have received a first dose of AstraZeneca are worried, and they want answers. They want to know whether they can mix and match doses, or do they need to start over and take 2 doses of another vaccine? Can we get a clear answer, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, Canadians' response has been guided by health and evidence and science, Mr. Speaker, and this is no different. We know that many provinces are pausing the delivery of AstraZeneca, I will say this. It is important for Canadians to get vaccinated as soon as they are offered. This is how we save lives, how we stop the spread, and how we get our lives back. And I am certain that provinces will do their absolute best to make sure that no doses go unused.
The honourable member for Charles-Bourg-Saint-Charles. Is it really right that I am the one who has to ask the Minister of Health how this is going to work? And we shouldn't forget that from the beginning, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health have contradicted Theresa Tam and Nassi. So I will ask my question again. If Canadians have received a first dose of AstraZeneca, can they mix and match? Should they get another AstraZeneca dose? Or do they need to start over and take 2 doses of another vaccine? Does the Minister even know, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we see a pattern from the Conservative Party of politicians wanting to interfere with the work of scientists, regulators, and researchers. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you this. Every vaccine that is authorized for use in Canada is safe. Canadians are stepping up in unprecedented ways. I myself have been immunized with AstraZeneca. I look forward to getting a second dose as soon as I am eligible. Mr. Speaker, that's what Canadians are doing. They're stepping up to help each other and to help themselves and to stop the spread of COVID-19.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, the Quebec National Assembly unanimously adopted a motion on Quebec culture in the digital age. According to the motion, Bill C-10 doesn't go far enough when it comes to protecting Quebec culture from the web giants. And that is very true. And that is why the Bloc Québécois has brought forward amendments to meet the expectations of the Quebec cultural sector. And on Tuesday, the House Leader warmly supported the motion. So does that mean that he will prioritize C-10 when it leaves committee according to the unanimous wish of the National Assembly and the Quebec cultural sector? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, and I'd like to thank the National Assembly. I'm very pleased that it supports rapid adoption of Bill C-10. It's a very important piece of legislation. And it's very important for the Quebec cultural and artistic industry and for the rest of Canada as well. We will get it adopted as quickly as possible. And we hope that the work will go well at committee. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly's motion also asks for Quebec to have full authority on culture and communications. And we've heard that before, even from Liberals. For example, Robert Bourassa asked for that in 1973. He referred to it as cultural sovereignty. Jean Charest asked for the same thing in 2008. The federal Liberals don't seem to be there yet, but good news. The Liberals' Quebec lieutenant supported the motion on Twitter this week, which means that he thinks that Quebec should have power over culture and communications. So, Mr. Speaker, will that be done before the end of the current session? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. What's important for us is to do everything in our power to support the cultural sector. Everywhere in the country, including in Quebec, Mr. Speaker, which has been severely affected by the pandemic, Bill C-10 will add hundreds of millions of additional dollars to our cultural ecosystem, including hundreds of millions of dollars in Quebec. All of that for francophone artists and musicians in Quebec and elsewhere in the country.
For Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, on March 8th, I asked the Immigration Minister if there were any privacy breaches in IRCC or CBSA, to which he claimed there have not been any. In fact, there were 1,793 privacy breaches from 2020 until now. One of those breaches led to more than 30,000 individuals' information being improperly disclosed. The facts don't line up with the claim. Why should Canadians trust this government with their data when they will not take cybersecurity seriously?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I said then, and I'll say again now, that we take privacy very seriously in this government. We have put in place the laws and policies that are necessary to protect Canadians' privacy as well as all of our clients who use the immigration system. We also have in place protocols to ensure that we are being transparent with Canadians when there are breaches. We work closely with all of the authorities to ensure that there is accountability so that we can continue to have an immigration system that delivers the economic and prosperity that we need in the long run for Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, this is the most anti-small business government in Canadian history. Who can forget the draconian 2017 tax changes and the Prime Minister's claim that small businesses are just a tax dodge for the wealthy? Small businesses are drowning in debt. They're facing uncertain futures while the government dithers its way through the pandemic with slow vaccine deliveries and failure to make use of other important tools. Where is the plan for a safe, permanent reopening?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our priority from the very beginning is to support Canadian businesses and to support Canadian workers. Budget 2021 is the most small business friendly budget in Canadian history. From decisive action to lowering credit card fees to historic support for digital and technological adoption, we're making ambitious and targeted investments to help get our businesses back on that road to recovery, to create jobs, and to ensure that there is inclusive growth. I agree. Small businesses are the backbone of our Canadian economy. We've been there for them. We will be there for our small businesses now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Beauce.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, after the failure of its single-source contract, this Liberal plan for testing foreign workers is continuing to be a failure. There are various Switch Health tests that are still lost or incomplete, and there's no way to get results. And now the new provider in Quebec, Dynacare, is asking businesses to bring their workers which are quarantining in Montreal so that they can get tested in person. Has the government developed a new mobile quarantine system that I'm not aware of? When will the government fix this mess?
Monsieur le Président, nous avons travaillé avec...
Mr. Speaker, we have worked closely with other federal departments in order to speed up processes and simplify the arrival of foreign workers as much as possible. The Public Health Agency and Service Canada have been in regular contact with Switch Health, employers, and industry associations with the goal to fixate these problems. We take this very seriously, and we will continue to work closely with Switch Health. The honourable member for Marcorel-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, it is estimated that more than half of food supply is wasted in Canada each year, which means that we could avoid wasting more than $50 billion worth of food. Reducing waste would mean that we could increase food availability, and it would lead to savings for businesses and consumers. It would create more robust food systems and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Could the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food tell us how our government is giving entrepreneurs the resources to create innovative solutions in order to fix this problem? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few days ago, I was able to unveil the names of the 24 semi-finalists of the first Food Waste Reduction Challenge. Each organization will receive $100,000 and move to a second stage, which will involve piloting the solutions on the market. These projects are varied and innovative, and the goal is to reduce waste, for example, by processing imperfect produce or by avoiding landfilling thanks to new composting approaches. Thank you.
Honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Enbridge Line 5 has been consistently sanctioned as safe by the U.S. regulator. Now, the governor of Michigan is trying to overrule that federal oversight authority. Enbridge is being pushed into U.S. court to defend the energy needs of Canadians and the 30,000 jobs in Ontario that depend on Line 5. This pipeline operates under an international agreement signed by our two nations. For the sake of Canada's energy security, will the Prime Minister step up and engage with the U.S. President on the enforcement of our treaty?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 is a critical energy and economic link between Canada and the U.S. Because of our efforts, it continues to operate today. On Tuesday, the Government of Canada filed an amicus brief in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan, sending a clear signal as to where Canada stands on this issue. I want to thank my counterparts, Minister Savage in Alberta, Minister Eyre in Saskatchewan, Minister Rickford in Ontario, and Minister Julien in Quebec for their collaboration and their unity on this issue. This is a full court press by Team Canada with the support of industry and labour. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen nothing but incompetence from this Natural Resource Minister. Why do we have to wait for a U.S. mediator to tell us if and how long we can continue to use Line 5? On this file, the minister has done the very least he could and at the very last moment. Line 5 is the critical piece of energy infrastructure in Canada that supplies Western Canadian oil to Eastern refineries and creates good-paying jobs along the way. If the relationship has never been better between the U.S. and Canada, why doesn't the Prime Minister pick up the phone, call President Biden, and get the Line 5 issue resolved today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I take exception to the Honourable Member's comments. First of all, we're taking the exact approach that the Canada-US Special Committee asked us to, the same approach that the provinces of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Ontario had urged us to. Canada has filed an amicus brief in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. It sends a clear signal as to where Canada stands on this issue. We are encouraged that Enbridge and the state of Michigan continue to participate in the court-ordered mediation process. We are confident it will yield a local solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government's failure to secure our borders has yet another casualty. 14 months ago, the Canada-US border was closed, land, sea, and air. While Canadian charter boats are moored at dock, American charter boats are being issued work permits by this government. There was a recent sting by the RCMP, but generally, enforcement of our sea border has been lax. When will the Minister of Public Safety pull these work permits permanently and start enforcing our sea borders?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the member's acknowledgement that, in fact, we did close our border with the United States 14 months ago, and we've imposed unprecedented restrictions on the movements of people and goods across that border, while at the same time maintaining essential supply lines. Mr. Speaker, as the member acknowledged, there has been enforcement by the RCMP onto the issue that he raises, and we'll continue to do our job, working very collaboratively, reciprocally with our U.S. counterparts. Those measures, Mr. Speaker, are working to help keep Canadians safe while we work towards the successful vaccination of our population, and we'll continue to maintain those restrictions as long as they are necessary.
Honourable Member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I've been discouraged by Conservative politicians with no medical training or background at all promoting what can only be described as vaccine hesitancy. This is not how we overcome the challenges of COVID-19. Canadians have been clear. Each of us, along with family, loved ones, and neighbors, should ensure we get vaccinated when our time comes and should raise our questions with medical professionals. It protects us, those close to us, and our communities. And Mr. Speaker, we've seen the progress. We've seen the action plan, and the action plan is working. Can the minister provide an update on vaccine doses delivered to Canada and vaccinations?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member from York Centre for her question and hard work. Here are the facts, Mr. Speaker. Over 50% of adult Canadians have received at least one dose of vaccine. We have delivered 21.5 million doses to provinces and territories, and Canada stands among the top 3 countries in the G20 for daily vaccination rates. We will receive up to 48 to 50 million doses prior to the end of June, and up to 100 million doses prior to the end of September. We're working together to get Canadians vaccinated, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Pay equity passed in 2018, but the final regulations of this act have yet to be implemented. Some women will have to wait more than a decade after this legislation passed to see pay equity. The Minister of Labour stripped workers of their rights with back-to-work legislation in a day, but is missing in action when it comes to defending women's rights to equal pay for equal value. Why is it when it comes to attacking workers' rights, they can do it in a day, but when it comes to defining women's rights, they ask for a decade?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are the first government to anchor our economic growth in women's health, in women's safety, and women's labor force participation. We move forward with pay equity legislation. Despite the protests from the Conservative Party of Canada, we will continue to work to ensure that women have equal pay for work of equal value and are safe everywhere.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The increasing crisis in the Middle East is a danger to the region and beyond. We are hobbled when we limit our response to both sides must de-escalate. Yes, they must. But true peace will never be achieved if we keep ignoring that one side is the occupier, the other is occupied. This current crisis was provoked by actions of the Netanyahu government and other extreme elements within settler groups. Can Canada speak out clearly to defend the Palestinian people against illegal annexation, illegal settlements, and illegal forced evictions?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada remains gravely concerned by the continued expansion of settlements and by the demolitions and evictions, including the ongoing cases of Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan. These actions impact families and livelihoods and do not serve peace or international law. Unilateral actions that prejudice the outcome of direct negotiations and further jeopardize the prospects for a two-state solution must be avoided. We will always stand ready to support efforts for a two-state solution.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. We have, I believe, a couple of points of order. Nous allons aller avec le...
We'll start with the first one.
Members for Sydney Victoria has a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, during the statements, you had indicated that one should be wearing their jacket and a tie. Must have been my posture or camera angle. I was wearing a beaded medallion, which was gifted me by the Office of the Treaty Commissioner in Saskatchewan. I believe on previous occasions you have ruled that this was appropriate and allowed in the House. And I think it's especially important considering Maclean's magazine praised your previous ruling in this month's article in the fashion section, where you were able to say that indeed this respects the growing diversity of this House.
I want to thank the Honourable Member, and yes, it was his posture because I looked and I couldn't see it, but I see it now. I thank the Honourable Member for Sydney Victoria for raising the point of order. As he pointed out, I made a short informal statement about the need for members to be appropriately attired, including a jacket and tie for men, when intervening in the proceedings. As members know, this remains an important element in upholding the standard of decorum in the House. However, I would like to take this opportunity to reiterate that the long-standing practice of members wearing Indigenous attire is also appropriate during their participating in the proceedings. In these circumstances, due to the virtual participation of members, it was difficult to tell if the member was in fact appropriately attired, which he was, and I thank the House for their attention to this matter. And again, I just want to point out that I was trying to see if I could, and I'd rather remind all members rather than interrupt the member in the middle of his statement, which he did an excellent job with. The Honourable the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Labour has a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions amongst the parties, and if you seek it, I hope you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That the House recognize that each year, thousands of Canadians are asked to serve on juries and contribute to the Canadian justice system, and designate the second week of May in each year as Jury Appreciation Week in Canada to encourage those Canadians who provide this public service and to recognize their civic duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those opposed to the Honourable Member moving the motion will please say nay. Well, I'm afraid we don't have unanimous consent in the chamber. Rappel au règlement.
Point of order, the Honourable Member from Montarville. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions among the parties, and I think you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion. That this House, A, denounced the resurgence of violence between Palestinians and Israelis that led to the death of at least 7 Israelis and many more Palestinians. B, call for an immediate ceasefire. C, reiterated support for a two-state solution. D, exhort Israel to stop acquiring more Palestinian territory. E, denounce the Hamas rockets against civilians. F, call on Israelis and Palestinians to quickly return to the negotiating table to find a lasting peace. All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay.
No. D'accord. Oh. Nous avons...
we do not have unanimous consent. The honourable member for Saint-Laurent on a point of order. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions among the parties, and I believe you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, on Friday, May 14th, 2021, at the ordinary hour of daily adjournment, the House shall consider and dispose of Bill S-223, an act respecting Kindness Week, as follows. A member from each recognized party and a member from the Green Party may speak for not more than 10 minutes on the motion for second reading, and at the conclusion of the time provided for the debate, or when no member rises to speak, whichever is earlier, the bill shall deemed to have been read a second time and referred to a committee of the whole, deemed considered in committee of the whole, deemed reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at report stage, and deemed read a third time and passed, and the House shall adjourn until the next sitting day. All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay.
D'accord.
Very well. The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pleasure of the... all those opposed to the motion will please say nay.
Adopté.
Carried.
Et maintenant, nous avons une question là.
Now we have the Thursday question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Opposition House Leader.
Okay, Opposition House Leader.
Excuse. Allez-y.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. So yesterday I quote someone, today I will quote you. You said during question period that we are in the week 5 of a long stretch. End of the quote, unquote. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, nous sommes à la fin d'une...
Yes, we are at the end of a 5-week stretch where we all worked, consecutive weeks at the House of Commons. Next week we'll all be in our ridings, still working hard for our constituents, but in our ridings. Now I'd like to know from my counterpart across the way whether he can tell Canadians what will be coming up on the agenda in the coming days. I thank the Opposition House Leader, and now we'll go to the Government House Leader. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank